we're mostly going to be watching this beautiful, beautiful screen. I can just go ahead and play it. There's sometimes we're going to be listening. Sometimes we're going to be watching. And it's going to be a great time. This is Carrie Buck, who I just mentioned. She is the president of the school board. And like I said, she's been around for a really long time. And they're about to go into their little private session. And we'll talk about it. We'll do things. All right. I'm really glad you guys are here. I think we're going to have a really good time doing this. My idea is that we can just like yap and watch. And I brought treats and snacks and we're just going to have a good old time. All right. Here we go. Let's pour some wine, shall we? I like a Sauv Blanc. It's my fave. Motherfucker. It's off to a really bad start. Okay, they're going into closed session. That has to be a bad omen. Carrie's hair. Carrie went through some things in that session. And I bet I know who is the culprit. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this broken glass while they do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, well, cheers. That is frozen. Woo! Just put that over there. Gonna need that. All right. We are talking about a district that has become a culture war hotbed. But like Carrie, like I mentioned, has been holding it down. It hasn't always been this way, but here we are. So let's grab our notes, shall we? You sent me 1,000 messages, not 1,000, 100. And at one point, I posted on Facebook asking for intel, and the subject of much of our conversations herself hopped right in there to chit-chat with us, gracing us with her presence. So I was specifically told that this school board meeting was going to be less dramatic than the one last week, and the one last week was pretty crazy. It was about ICE and stuff. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to like yap and not really focus too much. We'll turn this on for sure during public comment though. Well, okay, let's begin in 2020. All right. Back in 2020, Placentia-Yorba was like relatively calm, all things considered. But they started seeing the same kind of things that people across the country were seeing. We're seeing stuff come out about the culture war. Moms for Liberty was not invented yet. You're going to think like, oh, this is very Moms for Liberty-esque. It is. But this shit actually started pre-Moms for Liberty, if you can believe it. But I will say, the political environment and the networks and the like systems of power that went on to create Moms for Liberty are the exact same things at play that sent this school board down a very weird path. They're doing like a lot of acknowledging student groups today, which is pretty exciting. They have like a student council board person there who's saying yay and nay, which is fun and very exciting. In 2020, 3 new trustees were elected to the board. Marilyn Anderson, Leandra Blades, and Sean Youngblood. They were sworn in, and they joined existing board members Carrie Buck, who you just saw as our fearless president leader, and Karen Freeman. When I asked for information about this school board, I got not only a ton of information about Carrie, a ton of information about Leandra Blades. Like, whoa. And hilariously to me, she was nicknamed Leandra Blades. Hilarious. But the place that a lot of people start when they tell me about Leandra Blades is her political history, and specifically her girls' trip, her words, not mine, to January 6th, the Capitol. Yes, the insurrection, folks. She called it a girls' trip. Before she was on the school board, Blades was a cop. She was a police officer with the Downey Police Department, and during her time there, she was involved in a fatal shooting of an unarmed homeless man. There are accounts that say the shooting was ruled self-defense, but it became a point of controversy, and they bring it up all the time in these local elections and political fights, like as they should, yikes. Another incident is a civil lawsuit According to court documents, Blade was involved in a traffic incident in Yorba Linda where her vehicle struck a 13-year-old girl near a school. The girl reportedly suffered serious injuries, including brain trauma, and the case ultimately ended in a civil settlement. The settlement amount was not publicly detailed in documents that I have here, but the complaint referenced in records indicates that it was at least $25,000. Also, before she was elected to school board, she was involved in a major controversy in the city of Paramount. Residents there said that there was such horrible pollution that they believed it was causing a cancer cluster near local schools because multiple adults and children were diagnosed with cancer. One of the people speaking out was a local teacher named Lisa, who helped push for investigations into the air pollution. According to residents and documents, Blades was running a political Facebook page at the time and dismissed the pollution concerns as fake news and attacked people who raised the issue. You're going to find out that she is really into running Facebook groups. It's like one of her passions in life. I think that she's less in this for like the school board of it all and more in it so that she can run Facebook pages. It's wow. So the controversy led to lawsuits, settlement payments, all kinds of things. But all these incidents surrounding her career, they constantly are circulating. This is like people will point to these things and say like, this is how she leads. This is who she is. In fact, after the January 6th girls trip, almost 7,000 people signed a petition asking for her to be removed or resign or whatever. And of course, the district came out and was like, hey, that doesn't reflect us. Okay, that has nothing to do with us. But okay, let's look at the actual race that elected her, because if you're like me, the next thing you're thinking is like, how the hell did this person get elected? So there were 4 people running the year that she got elected. Her, Leandra, Mike, Susan, and Misty. I have a really fun thing that we're going to look at now. Leandra made a beautiful website about Misty's tweets. And I got to say, Misty seems like my kind of gal. So let's go ahead and open that up. LeandraBlades.com. So we are going to look at her tweets. She seems like a pretty cool gal, I just said. So let's take a gander. Misty tweets hate against our men and women serving in blue. You make it controversial by pretending like Blue Lives Matter is the same as Black Lives Matter. You did this. Shame on you. Correct. I mean, you can't. Those are different. Let them breathe. Where were they when George Floyd couldn't breathe? Oh, this is about mask mandates, because when Leandra was running, that was like a huge thing. If you remember, if you've been following me long enough, you remember it was like mask mandates, critical race theory, and parental rights, because that was when Ron DeSantis was going bonkers. It's almost like the white parents are afraid of being the minority. I wonder why they would feel that way. It couldn't possibly be because of how they have treated minorities in the past. No, that can't be it. I love Misty. That's awesome. Correct. Let's look at some more totally badass tweets by Misty. You already posted that one. This isn't racist. You can't be racist. Blue is not actually a comment about the color of their skin, Leandra. It's like, never mind. I'm not going to explain it to you. Look it up if you can. Those let them breathe nut jobs have been harassing principals and staff for months. They surely have. What is Leandra's commentary? Misty tweets hate towards parents and community members who were fighting for mask and vaccine choice during COVID. You were a nut job if you didn't want your child to be forced to wear a mask at school. Yes, you fucking were. As somebody who was teaching then. Moving on. But what is that? Is that an lol doll of... Who made that? This was like pre-AI being good. So somebody made this of Leandra with love. incredible. In case of offense, clutch tightly. Please, somebody send me that. That's incredible. I love you, Misty. Play along at home the next time Leandra releases a video. Oh my God, can we play? Attacks a member of the community. This is hilarious. This is awesome. Attacks a member of the community. Mention of horses. Inappropriate wearing of pearls. What? Okay, how is she inappropriately doing the pearls? Wears flip-flops to a barn. Excessive eye makeup. Wears pearls. So we have wears pearls and we have inappropriate wearing of pearls. Victim complex, pretends to support teachers, whines, lies about who is running PYL Buzz, which is their Facebook group. Praises sureness, that was their old horrible superintendent. Mentions her black dog. Please tell me she wasn't doing that. I have so many receipts of this woman being just like disgustingly racist. Attacks Misty Jansen, which is ironic because this is on a page attacking Misty Jansen. Lies in a car. Ryan Walters, previous disgraced superintendent of Oklahoma, also really loves being in cars. Mentions texts from the community, pretends to care about students. In inappropriate use of the word libel. Her children are involved with coach she is defending. Says she has integrity. She doesn't. Defends allies who violate the law. Girls trip, which we know what that is. Attacks the teachers union. Demands truthful posts are taken down. Cameo by Andy Falco, who I guess is like her like BFF. This is hilarious. And she put this on here voluntarily and thought that it would make Misty look bad. I always say, look me in my eyeballs. Misty, are we the same? Wow. I don't know anything about Janice Lim, but wow. Let's all give it up for Misty. Woo! That was fun. I'm glad we did that. Let's go back to the school board meeting, huh? Let's see what's cracking. Oh, what have I done? What have I done, sweet Jesus? What have I done? Any Les Mis fans out there? No? Okay. So candidates were campaigning on these things like critical race theory, opposition to LGBTQI plus people existing, anti-critical race theory, which that was their pre-DEI hysteria, and pandemic era fights over masks and curriculum, naturally. One of the people elected was our Leandra Blades, who quickly became one of the most visible and controversial figures, obviously. So again, Moms for Liberty did not exist, but Blades had support from figures like Jack Hibbs. That is a pastor of Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. This is a politically active evangelical church. It's a very large church. I know a lot of people that went to Calvary. Church mobilization has been a major driver of these conservative school board takeovers because they have money. So there's also evidence of ties. There's also evidence of ties between Blades and members of the Orange County Board of Education. That has been a hub for conservative policies as well. Orange County, like when I lived down there for a while, I was like next door to PYLUSD. I'm telling you, that Board of Education scares the shit out of me as a parent. I was like, I have to get out of here. But now, the old shitty superintendent that I mentioned has moved to Beverly Hills, so people in Beverly Hills are now dealing with it. Are we doing public comment?
During the public comment period, board members do not dialogue with the speakers or make comments regarding the information shared.
Okay.
We have 5
I'm
speakers
listening.
wishing to speak tonight. And
5 speakers, let's go!
Oh, there's a 6th one. Okay.
And then we'll continue.
We're still at the 3-minute mark. Okay, so when the speakers come up, please say your name, and I will list. I'll start with the first 3, and then I'll move to the next 3. So the first 3 are Al Judd, Grace Hernandez, and Sarah Phillips. And the rest are Julie Bearden, Heaven Casey, and Whitney Keene. So if you'd like to come up to the front row, you can have a seat there while you're waiting. All right, Mr. Judd.
Hi, my name's Al Judd. I'm here to speak about Policy 1445, about immigration officers in our schools. I'm vehemently opposed to it, and I will tell you why. There's been a lot of talk about why the students did the walkout and why there's so much resistance to this. And I'll tell you why I got involved. I'll tell you why I showed up for the walkout. Because when I was doing my research on this, I was looking at the comments section, and one of the parents asked Leandra Blades, doesn't this target Hispanic students? Leandra's response was, why would you think this targets Hispanics? We have a very large Asian community of immigrants here as well. That's overt racism against Hispanics and Asian students from our district. And she can sit there and clutch her pearls and nod her head and all that kind of stuff. But we're very opposed to this. You read, when we come up here, we can't be racist. We can't discriminate against people. We can't do any of that. And she wants to sneak it in as a part of school policy. It's outrageous. And it's not just this particular policy. This entire Heritage Foundation agenda, if you haven't done it yet, you owe it to yourselves in the community to look up the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership and Google the word education. They're dismantling our Board of Education at the federal level. They're completely erasing history. Look at what Trump's done to the Smithsonian Institute. They have an entire agenda to change our entire education system. And you have people here on the school board as part of that agenda that are trying to infiltrate it and discriminate against our kids. If you can't keep your racist...
Her smiling and laughing is pissing me off.
It's outrageous. And it's not just this particular policy. This entire Heritage Foundation agenda, if you haven't done it yet, you owe it to yourselves in the community to look up the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership.
Miles, we can
edit
this back, sorry.
They're dismantling our Board of Education at the federal level. They're completely erasing history. Look at what Trump's done to the Smithsonian Institute. They have an entire agenda to change our entire education system. And you have people here on the school board as part of that agenda that are trying to infiltrate it and discriminate against our kids. If you can't keep your racist agenda out of the school board, you should resign. You should just get out of here. Leave. Take your shit and get the fuck out of here.
Okay, so no, it's not okay. Sir, you need to please leave.
Stop. Stop to that.
We can't have language like that.
Right.
Okay, so next, Grace Hernandez, please.
Hey. So the purpose of my speech today is basically to just say, at the last one, 54 people spoke against the resolution that would allow ICE to enter schools and school buses during school hours, and it still got passed 5-0, which is kind of ridiculous. And the wording was changed from including federal law enforcement to encapsulating all law enforcement, and it seems like a lot of people fell for it because there's not a lot of people here today. So I'm just going to speak for all of them, I guess. But
Go, Grace, go.
so I'm asking today, if you don't care what 54 people have to say, then why do we have to care about what you have to say? Because you kept saying the country is built upon law, but the law only exists as long as the people will it to be so. The Constitution was made for the very purpose of serving the people and give us the right to bear arms if we disagreed with the law. So the law does not rule us. We rule the law. We decide what the law is and what rules we want to abide by. Which brings me to my third point, which is that if people do see masked men going into schools, there will be nothing short of a civil war. That is precisely where the tipping point of our country would be. When parents see children getting taken, they will step in, and there's absolutely nothing you could say that would stop that, and it's foolish to believe so. I find it hard to believe that you aren't aware of that, so it's either what you want or I genuinely don't trust your sense of judgment. And you also can't say disregarding the law is disrespecting the country when you were raiding, destroying, and desecrating the Capitol on January 6th. And my last point is that I find it funny. In the last meeting, you kept saying our country was founded upon law. When we came here immigrating, found laws we disagreed with and killed off the natives. We also have one of the school mascots is the Aztecs. So, like, Mexican culture is part of American culture, and all of that is just objectively the truth, that's the foundation we were built upon, and just not an opinion. And that was all.
Go Grace! Go Grace! Woohoo,
Okay,
Grace!
Sarah Phillips.
Let's go, Sarah!
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Phillips, and I'm the librarian at Yorba Linda High School. A few things. First, happy Women's History Month. Second, I'm also the advisor of the National Honor Society chapter at Yorba Linda High School, and I wanted to congratulate the 62 sophomores and juniors that were inducted last Thursday. It was a lovely ceremony. Third, I need to come back to my unfinished comment from last month. I'll reiterate that Resolution 2112, the CRT ban needs to be removed for the reasons stated last month. The second resolution I'd like you to consider is 2030. Originally passed in 2020, it included a reference to Black students' mental health and the reality of police brutality in America. That part was removed in 2021. I and many others think it should be added back into the resolution. Black families are part of this community and district and deserve representation. Lastly, I hope everyone is reading some good books. My favorite since the last board meeting was a tie between The Filling Station by Tia Williams and Junie by Aaron Crosby Eckstein, both historical fiction, my favorite genre, and thank you for your time.
I love you, Sarah. That was beautiful.
I'm Julie Bearden. Members of the board, what occurred at the last meeting was more than a moment of heated public comment. It was a failure of leadership. Leandra Blades was subjected to repeated open verbal attacks, and today, the response from leadership was not protection of the integrity of this body, but silence. And that silence spoke very loudly. It signaled that the rules meant to guide respectful engagement can be selectively enforced. A school board is entrusted with modeling the values we expect students to live by: respect, fairness, accountability. Equality cannot exist when enforcement depends on who is being targeted. Public comment is a cornerstone of transparency and civic participation. It is not a license to degrade, intimidate, or humiliate. Leadership
Has anybody told our
requires
president?
the courage to enforce boundaries, even when doing so may be uncomfortable. Allowing
need to
a
tell
board
Christy
member
no,
to be
unless she
publicly
got fired.
targeted without intervention undermines the credibility of this institution and erodes trust in its leadership.
But it's okay when your president does
Civility in
it?
its
Hello?
intent promotes mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among district employees, parents, and members of the public. It also reminds us that freedom of expression is important and protected. It should never come at the cost of creating a hostile or volatile environment. Disagreement is normal and a healthy part of public discourse, but last meeting, lines were crossed that this policy was written to prevent. The moment calls for reflection and accountability. Respectful discourse must not depend on popularity, politics, or personal alliances.
Girl, I hope you're
Every member of
applying
this
that
board deserves the
liberally
same standard
everywhere.
of protection and professionalism. Leadership is not measured by how smoothly meetings proceed when things are easy. It is measured by whether you are willing to stand up for fairness when it's not. The community deserves better. So do the people who serve on. So do the people who serve on this board. Please do better.
Ew! Yeah, like you can't go up there and cuss. Like that guy should not have done that. But was it a little nice given what happened at the last meeting? Yes, and I will tell you about that. She said some crazy shit as usual.
My name is Heaven Casey. Good evening, PYLUSD School
Hi,
Board.
Heaven.
Some of you might remember me from speaking in January, but to briefly remind you, my name is Heaven Casey and my son has been a student since pre-K. I've been an advocate for children for nearly over a decade, and I always speak out regarding topics that concern me pertaining to children with their mental, emotional, and physical safety. Last time I spoke regarding keeping pride flags out of schools because the children I've seen on social media are begging and crying for that to stop. as well as keeping boys and girls sports separate and bathrooms being used based on gender for safety for both boys and girls on campus. These are battle cries. I also spoke about the school district being in violation regarding Title IX in reference to keeping equal opportunities for female athletes. I am also here speaking about keeping children safe from ICE because as a person who has multicultures in them, it pains me to see our children afraid to go to school just because of their immigration status. I am asking again for real introspection regarding all of these topics. Children shouldn't be bearing the brunt of their parents' bad decisions. And these children should feel safe, happy, and secure within the walls of our schools. Each of you elected board members took an oath to protect all children in this school district because you were elected by the people and for the people. I'm praying to God that changes your heart to think godly rather than politically. As a person of faith, I again ask this question. What would it take to look and lead with wisdom, humility, and moral clarity? Revival does not come through division. It comes through courage, togetherness, unity, and love for humanity, especially when it comes to our children. I believe we can maintain appropriate boundaries in school bathrooms, protect girls' sports, keep politics out of classrooms.
That was all political shit. You just said so many political things in a row. You unity? You're like, we need to be unified, and then it's like, just say the most divisive. That's not a word. Just say the most divisive shit ever. I am so frustrated. And then look at what's happening in the White House. What precedent does that set for our kids? What does that say? Oh.
Focus on the mental health of these students. Protect all students from harm within the walls of our schools. It truly takes a village, and a good leader looks out for the best interests of others regardless of political differences. Having this mentality creates a legacy our children will inherit and respect. Let's all make decisions to honor all children in this school district. Thank you for your time, and may God continue to bless the PYLUSD School Board. Thank you to Annette Newton and Renee Gray. Enjoy retirement.
So all children except for the ones that are gay or trans or, what?
Good evening, board members. My name is Whitney Keene. I'm a parent
Whitney.
of two PYLUSD students with a third set to start in the fall. I'm here to speak on behalf of our neighbors and friends, but also as a teacher employed in a neighboring district who knows that schools should be the absolute safest place in a community for children. For many students in our district, particularly those whose families include immigrants, that sense of safety depends on the decisions that you make in this room. Board Policy 1445, Response to Immigration Enforcement, should clearly include that staff will document any immigration enforcement activity on or near school campuses. Documentation and transparency are not obstruction or interference. They are a responsible public service and help ensure families are informed and protected. The policy should also explicitly affirm that no student will be denied equal rights or educational opportunities because of their family's immigration status, not just the student's own status. That protection matters to the families that you serve, and it should be stated explicitly in the policy. Our schools exist to educate and protect children, not to create fear for them or their families. And so I urge you to strengthen this policy so that every family in this district knows that they are safe, valued, and welcome at their children's schools and in our community. Thank you.
Thank you,
Go,
speakers.
Whitney.
That takes us now to our consent calendar. The consent calendar actions proposed by the consent calendar for the consent calendar items are consistent with approved practices for the district and are deemed routine in nature. The trustees receive board agenda backup information in advance of scheduled meetings and are prepared to vote with the knowledge on block vote items. Is there anybody that wants to pull anything?
Yes, 19.13 and 19.14.
I also would like to pull 20.1 and then as a block 20.4, 20.5, and 20.6.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Thank you. Okay, motion by, well, not as amended, but with the app.
Oh,
Okay, motion by Mr. Frazier and second by Mrs. Blades. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. All right, motion carries 5-0 and I with the student board member. Do you want to do?
I'm going to block these. No, I'm going to block them. So 19.3, I'll make a motion to approve 19.13 and 19.1.4.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I was just looking at this, and it was the St. John's Pizza contract, and this was for, I believe, the entire year. Oh, I'm sorry, not St. John's, Papa John's. I made up a new company.
John's Pizza.
So we pay $750,000 for that, and then it sounds like every 4 months we pay $256,000 for other foods from 19.14 to be brought in. And I guess it's like cold food that gets distributed to our schools. And so with the Valencia Kitchen project being a hot topic in the community, and $6.4 million may not be the actual amount, it's just what we're guessing it to be. It could be much more. I've had a lot of people that have experience in this type of thing talk about how much cheaper it could be if we used nutrition services as a hub and we didn't maybe go forward with, I'm going to block for cold food that gets distributed to our schools. And so with the Valencia Kitchen project being a hot topic in the community, and $6.4 million may not be the actual amount, it's just what.
she really is going for the Tim Burton look. She saw Corpse Bride and was like, absolutely, that is for me. That's like, what year is that? Are we stuck? Is this something about the 80s? Did something happen in the 80s where she stopped changing her makeup? This is like Republican makeup. Somebody needs to get Suzanne Lambert in here immediately.
More consistently throughout schools in Orange County and California, or food to be delivered in, or is there more like, with the fresh foods and all the cooking and all those things like that, and especially with declining enrollment and having to lay off staff and employees, I'm wondering if this is a cheaper option and something that we should be looking into, being where we are. I'd rather pay employees than have a big fancy kitchen.
Go ahead, John.
Sure, no problem. We can bring back a sort of a little more comprehensive nutrition services presentation on what we do. The current budget, and we'll see that in just a few minutes on second interim, I think is a little over $18 million a year that we spend. And, in excess of, I think, $9 million on food.
Bless their hearts, I'm bored talking about food. So let's go back and talk about drama. Oh, God. So last we were gossiping about how church mobilization really influences school board elections in Southern California because they have money. But the Orange County Board of Education really freaked me out as a parent. I did not like the fact that they have basically been behind conservative education politics in many scenarios. They have supported school choice, anti-CRT initiatives, and conservative curriculum campaigns. I don't know if they're better now, but I got the hell out of there. All that to say, even though Moms for Liberty is the most common thing that we talk about, the extremist right-wing framework was there all along. According to the official Orange County election report, Blades won with about 38.7% of the vote, so she did not win the majority, but she won by the largest percentage in a crowded race, which is really common in local school board elections. For several years after that election, they had the majority, they being like these ultra right-wing extremist people. And it was when they were enjoying that majority that it became a culture war fiasco. And the COVID fights, like I mentioned, really supercharged this whole thing. Because if you were teaching during that time, this was like a huge point of conversation. Things like mask mandates. Oh, they can't see little Johnny smile. Like things like that where like people were actually saying. There were also fights over like book bans and curriculum and blah, 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 blah. All the usual. The greatest hits, if you will. But another controversy that really put this on the map and in a lot of people's like knowledge is California State University Fullerton trains tons of teachers. I went to a Cal State University up north, and they pump out teachers in these programs. And every year, Cal State Fullerton would send student teachers to PYLUSD. And that was part of their credential program. If you don't know, in California, we do like allegedly it's changing now, but back in my day, what they would do is you would go to a 4-year university and get like whatever you wanted as far as a degree goes. And then instead of like taking a few education classes every semester, you take every single education class back to back and all at once. So it can be like a couple-year program. I did it in 1 year, which was absolutely insane because you're student teaching during the day and you're taking your classes at night. You still come into your first year teaching getting the same amount of classes, but it's just on top of your like whatever bachelor's you got, if that makes sense. So a lot of states call that alternative certification. That's like not what we call it. That's just how it is. But anyways, all that to say, in the credential program, they would send student teachers to PYLUSD. But in 2022, the school board banned critical race theory, and they started debating restrictions around things like ethnic studies, which is like, yikes. Cultural curriculum was on the chopping block. Just a disaster. So Cal State Fullerton said, we're not sending student teachers to the school because we don't know what you're going to let them teach. We don't know what you're going to teach them because a lot of learning for these teachers happens in these schools. I mean, it's like your on the ground education. It's just absolutely horrible. So, and in California, we're required to be taught things like equity in our teacher training. It's like baked in. So that's like a non-starter. Let's see what they're saying now. Hang on.
Motion to ratify the independent contract agreement as listed in accordance with board policy 4124, retention of consultants.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mrs. Anderson, what would you like to?
I pulled this just to draw attention. This is with our contract with the First Lego League with the Reach Foundation. And if you guys haven't been following social media and the news, we have 2 teams that are progressing. The one team that is from Golden and Kramer Middle School, they actually earned first place.
I'm so happy that the children are doing good at sports, but I'm going to switch. Sorry to Maryland. But then that means that the district lost out on 70 to 80 student teachers every year because they just couldn't help themselves with the bigoted policy. So huge issue because that's, a way that they get new teachers into the classroom, but also it's also a big help for like teachers. If you get a student teacher, you have 2 capable professional adults in the classroom and you're able to teach so much more effectively because think of it, you have a student teacher in the back running a small group while you do like general instruction so that kids can get like really, really differentiated learning. It's really cool. They didn't have that because they just couldn't help themselves, they being the majority of the board. So in 2024, voters said, F you, I've had freaking enough. A Moms for Liberty endorsed candidate that was totally like lockstep with Blades lost miserably. And the school board majority flipped. It was a huge deal. I remember when this happened. Let's see what they're talking about now. They're giggling.
Take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 5-0 and a yes from Simran.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve 20.4, the AP Kickstart Business and Personal Finance, 20.
Oh, cool. AP Business and Personal Finance. That's cool. So all of a sudden, Blades and her buddies were not able to enjoy that majority any longer. But now the new majority since then has been trying to untangle the disaster that Leandra and her pals created. So there's a lot of tension. Let's look at who these people are. So right now you're looking at Marilyn Anderson. She was elected in 2020. Marilyn Anderson, she pushed back against Blades. She looks serious. Hang on.
Our students are not only taking classes, but
Okay, classes. Okay, cool. So Marilyn pushed back against Blades. She has appeared in transcripts questioning district spending, major projects, governance decisions. And it's great. She helped shift the balance of power back on the board. That's Dr. Kim. I asked somebody what you think of Dr. Kim, and they were like, I don't know. She joined in October 2025, and I don't know. I think the last superintendent was actually so horrible that people are just like happy she's here, but I couldn't get like any intel. So that's kind of good. No news is good news, right? I mean, somebody will tell me. They'll tell me whatever's going on. Who else? Sitting next to Blades in this meeting is Todd Frazier. This is like her BFF. They've worked together on culture war resolutions, policy fights over transgender students, and other controversial board initiatives. Okay. And then who else do we have? Trisha Quintero is, she's the one who flipped the board. So great. Love her. Happy we're here. We're going to talk about Trisha later because her and Leandra kind of got into it last month. Let's see what's happening now. She's smiling.
Planning listening sessions. In every session we've had, students have talked about the importance of developing their skill set in that space and wanting it. So I expect it to be a popular course throughout our district.
Awesome. Love to hear that. Okay, with that, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Okay, so the board is really closely split. It's like 3-2, okay? So that means that everything that is hard basically becomes a political showdown. One of the biggest issues, which you heard them talk about tonight, let me eavesdrop for a second.
Difficult time presenting and teaching from my seat. I do better job on my feet. So I'm going to move over that way if that's okay.
Superintendent's getting on her feet, guys. Okay, so what they were talking about last month is whether ICE agents should be allowed on school campuses. In early February, hundreds of students from a high school walked out of class to protest immigration policy across the country. There has been immigration enforcement activity in the community and near schools. So this tied with the fact that there was a proposed school board resolution tied to ICE. The kids were like, absolutely freaking not. And that energy came to the next board meeting because they were talking about stuff like this. Let me eavesdrop really quick.
We brought in the chief academic officer from Jeffco Public Schools, Renee Nicothodis. She met with our principals. She met with
I think this is somebody new is coming on in. So last month, dozens of speakers came. Like it was like pandemonium. We should have watched that board meeting, but alas, we missed it. So Leandra Blades reportedly brought a cup filled with ice cubes, a Stanley, and every time ice was brought up, she was shaking the ice like the classy, broad professional she is. Turnover. They're talking about turnover. Check that out. So they're talking about the fact that there's a lot of turnover. I wonder if this is the one that goes up. Yeah. Well, shall we listen?
District is an ecosystem where our individual work is dependent upon the health of the whole ecosystem. And in order for us to ensure all students are successful, we've got to make sure there are systems in place that support all of our students. The system has experienced high turnover. 6 superintendents in 7 years, certainly, with including the interims, means that oftentimes the discussion around what priorities feel like start, stop. And so certainly creating some continuity is going to help with the healthy ecosystem of the district. The turnover has impacted that. So in looking at the academic department organizations, we looked at identifying current successes, determining opportunities for growth, and explore proven organizational strategies from other similar districts that would help us gain insight on where could we be more successful with increasing success of all students in our district. What she really looked at was interviews, focus groups, having conversations with central office academic leaders.
All right. I love data, but let's continue because we're gossiping. Just kidding. We're sharing allegations and evidence. Okay. Last month, 2 issues. 1, an immigration enforcement response policy that would limit permission for ICE on school property without a warrant or a subpoena. It also said district staff should not collect or share information about students' immigration status and noted that staff should not obstruct an official. That language is always an issue for me because if you say like do not obstruct, do not impede, it kind of feels like, and by extension, do not protect your community or your students or whatever. And that bothers me, but I digress. The other thing was a resolution introduced by Leandra Blades framed as supporting law enforcement, including federal immigration officers, ICE. That triggered all of this crazy, heavy, awesome public participation. Over 50 people came to oppose it. The public comment list from that meeting includes speaker after speaker after speaker who talks about ICE activity near schools being an issue, student safety, immigration enforcement policies, and whether the district should adopt protections for undocumented students. The board ultimately, you heard, I think Grace talked about this tonight, you heard the board modified that resolution. They broadened it to say all law enforcement, not just ICE, everyone we support. So weird. But there was also a conflict between Quintero and Blades over Know Your Rights cards, which Leandra says are anti-ICE and teaching students and whoever to evade law enforcement. And Trisha was like, no, they describe constitutional rights like your right to remain silent and your right to refuse entry without a judicial warrant, which, yes, Know Your Rights cards are awesome, by the way. And LAUSD is giving out red cards too. Like a lot of school districts are giving out red cards. They're really, really important. It's really funny sometimes how issues between school districts are just so similar. It says school staff often feel that there are too many improvement initiatives that lack a coherent through line or sufficient implementation time. A perceived lack of follow through after training makes initiatives feel isolated, diverting attention and energy. I really love how they said that. Very profesh. I haven't always framed it that nicely, but really good work, guys. Good work. So these policies are really, really important, though, because Plyler versus Doe, the Supreme Court decision that says that public schools cannot deny education to students regardless of their immigration status, that's something that means like schools have to kind of figure out what they're going to do. Trump got rid of sensitive locations, which said that ICE cannot operate near or in schools and also like hospitals and churches and stuff like that. So they're in this position where like they're trying to like handle these situations and protect student rights at the same time. I mean, hopefully the school's concerned about protecting student rights, right? But you can probably see why these meetings have become a lot. And there's so freaking much about this school board, you guys. Like, I am literally skipping some things because it is intense. I got so much intel. And I know that there's a lot of you watching who are intimately familiar with this district. And you're probably like, oh my God, no, that's not right. That's not right. Like, she's wrong. I'm just like recounting my research of how I interpreted it. But I'm going to direct you, dear viewers, to this YouTube channel here. They know best. If you're looking for like a dive of any kind or people in the community that were here or know what's going on, check that out. Or you can check the PYLUSD Facebook group run by Leandra Blades herself. Yes, like a lot of Facebook groups, it is intense. People post like a lot of stuff. It's rumors, screenshots, documents, whatever. I mean, they've posted so many things. So whenever something controversial happens at a school board meeting, whether it's like a policy vote or a speech or somebody shaking a cup of ice on camera, it gets clipped, it gets posted. And that's not unique to PYLUSD. That happens everywhere. I mean, Facebook groups have been very ingrained in education culture for a long time. But people like, there's a lot of freaking drama in this one. People were sending me so much stuff, I could not even parse it. People were like, so-and-so has a burner account, and this is their other account, and we put it together, and this is, I mean, I was getting like 5-year-old drama, and I was like, I respect it, been there. I mean, personally, I've never gotten over anything in my life, so I have absolutely no hate in my heart or shade or whatever. It's just, I was like, I don't know how to cover all of this. So it was funny because a lot of people were like, oh, Leandra Blades is going to ruin your life. Like, she also got wind that I'm making this video. So she left a really lovely thing about how she didn't know she's so important. And I'm like, oh, Yeah, sure. That is, some people don't know the difference between good attention and bad attention, and good for them. Here we are reaping the benefits by talking about it. So people were like, oh, she's going to ruin your life. Baby, I was bullied by Elon Musk during the 2024 election on Twitter. Okay? I'm not scared of Leandra Blades, please. So as you know, one thing that is very near and dear to my heart is trans rights. And there was a huge thing with this. So in California, Ed Code says students can participate in sex-segregated programs, including athletics, consistent with their gender identity. Leandra Blades tried to push a measure at PYLUSD aimed at banning transgender athletes from competing, but the board refused to place her proposed item on the agenda, but Blades cried and whined about it to be put on a later agenda, and she threatened to sue. So it failed, by the way. But mind you, there were exactly 0 transgender athletes at PYLUSD. So as per usual, this is culture war bullshit. It means nothing. So other than they're hateful and they're trying to be hateful. So, and another thing, they're trying to just make children and transgender people at large just feel bad about themselves. That's their whole MO. So at one Yorba Linda High School track meet, there was a Save Girls Sports rally held because one trans girl was competing. These are grown freaking women coming to a track meet to bully a teenager. Okay? Just ridiculous. And Leandra posted about this athlete on social media and then accused the majority board members who are most aligned with human rights. Leandra hates that. Of supporting women. She accused them of supporting men in women's sports because they voted against her turf resolution, which is bullshit. This is just so stupid. Track and field is a non-contact sport. There was nobody in physical danger, but they kept talking about physical danger because that's how they manufacture hysteria around these types of issues, is by being like, oh, the girls are unsafe. Title IX, they're unsafe because there's boys. It's not, no, it's not true. It's just pure nasty political spectacle as usual. So, I just think I get heated, but I just think that adults, especially like trans people in general being attacked is horrible, but like also anytime any adult in power is using a child or teenager to leverage themselves and get some kind of political brownie points, just like nauseates me. So, I could go on. I could tell you about the old superintendent I keep talking about. He seemed like a real piece of work. The district settled a lawsuit for $300,000 after it had been heading towards trial. The core allegation here was that the former superintendent created a hostile and abusive work environment, including allegedly telling principals that he, quote, did not care if a student hits, kicks, or punches a staff member. It is part of their job, and that principals need to make staff accept that. The materials say that an administrator who objected to that approach was then subjected to harassment and wrongful treatment, which eventually led to his resignation. Allegedly, that lawsuit was one of several tied to this superintendent's reign. So if you want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, that is taxpayer money going to pay a settlement because the board majority at the time was more concerned with culture war points than acting. It just, and that's a horrible thing to say. I cannot believe they would find a way to make that partisan. That is ridiculous. So, what are they talking about? Should we see?
Experience both academically as well as overall mental health and well-being, looking at student services. And then organizing my teams to consistently articulate a vision that's aligned with school needs and breaks down those silos. So finally.
Okay, I'm going to do a little skippity-dippity-doo. Okay. Cool. So, just not cool. It's just bad. This is what happens when national culture war politics comes into the local governance level. There are really good people here trying to hold the line, but when there are orgs with money and influence and power, it's really hard. historically the right has way more money than we do and way more clout in a lot of ways because they're able to leverage their relationships with these conservative organizations to get the money, to get the backing. It's just really frustrating. But the reason I care about this stuff and the reason I keep talking about this and telling you to pay attention to school boards is because the stuff that happens here is where a lot of times people are test driving the ugliest policies because they genuinely think that nobody is watching them. And in a lot of cases, nobody is, to be quite frank with you. I mean, they start locally. Turnout is often very low. And they, people assume that it's too boring to pay attention to. And they're supposed to be boring, to be completely honest with you. But, when people are talking about how they feel like they have no power nationally, they feel like their vote doesn't matter in a national election, whatever. I really hope that people who feel that way are getting involved locally, and school boards are one of the easiest entry points for anybody who wants to get involved in politics because, big decisions are happening here. You don't have to be a parent. You don't have to have kids. You could have your kid in private school. You could have them homeschooled. It doesn't matter. The way that we care about any kind of infrastructure like healthcare or the roads, you can care about education, public education. Okay, think of it this way. Nationally, there are how many? 82,000 school board members that make decisions that will directly impact education. And when you look around, 90% of people are educated by public schools, okay? 90% of the adults around you, right? Don't we all want to be part of making sure that the fascists are not educating 90% of people? Hello? 90% of future voters. Turnout in school board elections can be as low as 5 to 10%. There's a Ballotpedia study of 2023 local elections, and they found that about 53% of school board seats were uncontested. That means that nobody is running for them. What are they talking about? Oh, they're laughing.
Okay. I just want to make sure because okay, so we're
Methods that are explained. And so just changing that language to, in our regular scheduled board updates or regular scheduled communications, just something like that to clarify it.
Is that all?
That was it.
Great. Well, we did spend a lot of time working on this together, so it's a good note. So, did you want to add any of that in? Is that something that we would bring back, or?
I can bring it back, or you guys can adopt it as amended, and I will go back and listen to it as well.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
I'm shocked that this would not go to a second read.
Well,
Absolutely
this
shocked.
is. Well, we could bring it to a second read. Well, we can. We just spent a lot of time on it, so I assumed we
had
were
a
there
whole
with it.
study session on it.
Yeah. So it was kind of like this is the second round.
We were there.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure because be fair. Okay, so we're going to amend it, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, and an aye from Simran. Okay. Need a motion first for the CSBA Delegate Assembly.
I'd like to make a motion to vote on the CSBA Delegate Assembly for the California School Boards Association.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second, so spaces to fill. Do you have any recommendations?
Well, I was going to recommend myself and you, Mrs. Buck, Carol Crane, Katie McGowan, Deanna Miller, and Barbara Schulman. I was going to do those 6.
Okay, and the reason why those 6, do you have any comments on that?
Just their experience and, their bios. We get lots of background information. And some of these I have met, and they're very active. And I appreciate their feedback.
I know all the ones that you mentioned. I haven't met Hector Bustos or Henry Charowin. Art Montez I have met before, but I haven't really.
I like Marilyn and I like Carrie. I think Marilyn's like so sweet.
From Anne Marie Randall Trejo
That's what I was
from
gonna
Anaheim
suggest.
Union, asking to be written in. She's been on delegate assembly before. She missed the deadline to submit. She's listed there before her term expires 2026. So I would recommend her as well.
Yeah, I was going to add that one as well.
I'm good with Anne Marie.
Oh,
Either of you
sorry.
have any comments? No? Okay. Are we okay with the slate that we've listed here? So I'll read that again. Marilyn Anderson, Carrie Buck, Carol Crane, Katie McEwen, Deanna Miller, Barbara Schulman, and Anne Marie Randall Trejo. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, so we have a 3 yes, a 2 abstain, and a
Abstain.
1 aye from our student board member. So that motion carries. Okay. All right, moving on. 24.3, our revised board bylaw 9323.
I'll make a motion to adopt revised board policy 9323, agenda and meeting materials.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Dr. Kim, I'll pass it for comments.
We did not make any changes from the last meeting, so I really don't have any at this time.
Okay. All right, so this is our second reading. Anybody else have any comments, concerns, questions? Okay, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. 5-0 and an aye from Sarah. Okay, next is our board policy 1445, response to immigration enforcement. Second reading. Motion is second.
Ooh.
I'll make a motion to adopt board policy 1445, response to immigration enforcement, second reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Anderson, second by Mr. Frazier, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Gray so that you can pass. Dr. Kim can pass.
I will pass it over to Ms. Gray in just a moment. I just want to say a public thank you to Mr. DeMarco, who worked with Ms. Gray and Dr. Pedraza for quite a lengthy period of time to try to not only capture some of the recommendations that were made by board members as a part of the paragraph that you all really thought deeply about, but they were really helpful in helping to make some sense of that, and we tried to offer some amended language. But I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Gray because she really was instrumental in putting that together. So thank you to Ms. Gray as well.
Okay, thank you. So at the first reading on February 10th, board members had requested revisions to that specific paragraph that addressed how staff should respond if an immigration enforcement officer enters a non-public area of our district property. So there was concern raised that the language maybe lacked sufficient clarity regarding staff direction and safety and maybe the way it could be interpreted. So in response to that, we've revised it, as Dr. Kim said, with the help of Tony DeMarco. So with your permission, I can read the proposed revised paragraph, or you can just discuss it, whatever you decide.
Sure, go ahead and read it for us.
Okay. Alrighty. So the revised paragraph is as follows. Except as described above, district employees are not authorized or permitted to participate in law enforcement activities related to immigration enforcement actions. District employees are also prohibited from physically blocking, obstructing, or otherwise engaging in actions that are either intended to or have the effect of interfering with or impeding the actions of law enforcement. In the event such an activity occurs on district property, at a district-sponsored event, or on district-provided transportation, staff shall refrain from involvement and promptly notify the superintendent or designee or site administration as appropriate.
And Tony's okay with all this?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
My only comment was this paragraph is kind of redundant. Basically, we say the same thing 3 times. Could we possibly remove the examples where the district employees are prohibited from physically blocking, obstructing, or otherwise engaging in actions that are either intended to or have the effect of interfering with impeding actions of law enforcement? And then we could just put those kind of specific instructions in an AR.
That's what we had in the first place. So what was the point of the rewrite?
Yeah.
If you take out the specific instructions, which you asked for, then we're back with initially what was said, the part we took out.
Bless you.
But we got rid of the however, which made it sound like we're allowing immigration enforcement in. That's
So
how
we're
I
not
read
stopping
it.
them.
We can't stop
Right,
them.
correct.
Right. So
Why are you concerned about the specifics?
I just thought it was redundant because you have the first part and then you repeat it again about district-sponsored events and transportation, and then again it says staff shall not refrain.
That's what David Rather said to you guys in the last meeting. He said that this paragraph was redundant. And so I don't really trust David Rather. I trust Tony DeMarco.
Okay. Hello.
Well, the only thing I would say is the specifics are helpful. The only thing I would say in line with a little bit of what you're saying is if there is an incident that's not listed, make sure that it's clear that in no way, even if it's not listed, do we get involved.
Right. And I really like the part where it says, we're going to notify, the
always
superintendent.
notify, right.
Yeah. And the superintendent.
I just think this is probably the best way to do this. Working with attorneys and back and forth, and you guys asked for clarity, so
It's up to you guys.
I'm good with it.
So I do have something to point out though. Dr. Kim, did we ever in the policy or in the resolution from last time, was there ever anything that gave ICE an open door to come onto our campuses and take away children and take away families or do anything like that?
The previous policy, the way it was written, did state clearly that schools were to be safe campuses. Schools were to be safe places. This policy was designed, my understanding in terms of the change in legislation, this policy was designed to add family members and to add staff members, but not to take away any of the context of we still believe that schools needed to be safe places for kids. Right. And that's what the policy originally, at least my understanding was.
And the policy did lie in the student section before about what we do to help students, but now it's spread to how we respond if and in the event this does happen. So it moved to the thousands about how we're supposed to respond. But it never changed. It changed that part, but it never changed any way of law enforcement entering our campuses. Nothing was changed.
This is not an invitation, is what you're saying.
Exactly. No. So my question is this, because I think people are. I think that this is I think that this was very irresponsible, and I think it was an injustice to our community for the district not to put out when all of this nonsense went out on social media saying that this was an open door for ICE to come onto our campuses and ICE can come on and take kids and stuff, and the district was just silent as we had all these social media groups stirring up trouble, stirring up walkouts by promoting fake information and false information. I mean, like now you're hearing the actual information. Had a letter been sent home that said this has been circulating and this is the true and this is correct about policy. And this is what's stated. This is coming from the state.
Yeah, it's a state requirement.
Because I mean, look at like how embarrassing for these people from the last board meeting who came up and absolutely misquoted the policy, actually said that ICE could come onto our campuses willy-nilly and take kids. And then here they are saying that the Heritage Foundation is bringing forth this policy, or I'm bringing forth a policy, when this is mandated by the state. So we have all these people up here with so much misinformation. We have our students, we have faculty, we have the community members completely buying into fake social media who are just trying to stir up problems. And yet the district was silent. And all of these families who came, we had a lot of parents coming who were fearful because they really thought this was happening. And yet the district was silent and allowed this to happen. And so I think it's completely irresponsible. And I think we owe the community and our families a letter of apology and also some type of statement that actually says what the policy was about and that ICE could never come onto our campuses, as people were stating. And the silence from the district was just, I'm sorry, that was completely irresponsible.
My experience from the last board meeting was different. This response to immigration enforcement comes from the state, yes, but the people that were coming to talk were talking about a resolution that was going beyond this and did include ICE. So it was different.
No, it did not.
This one here in the first sentence says the governing board is committed to the success of all students and believes that every school site should be a safe and welcoming place for all students and their families, irrespective of citizenship or immigration status. I know that was a concern that someone had. The one thing that I noticed here that I also that was mentioned about coming onto property, it doesn't really, in the second page, there's the sentence that starts, or the paragraph starts, the superintendent or designee shall report to the board in a timely manner any request by an officer or employee of an agency conducting immigration enforcement of any of the following for education records or personnel records to enter a school bus or any transportation non-public area. That because it was looped in with school bus, other transportation, non-public area of the district, non-public area of district-sponsored program, all of that looped together. I felt maybe it wasn't as clear as transportation and campuses, but it is included in there, so that does qualify it. And we did have some addition where at the last meeting where we were adding in the teachers and the staff shall be trained on what the requirements are. We would never put anybody in harm's way, so we don't want anybody to do that, but we want to make sure that our schools are safe and welcoming. So I think this incorporates it. The redundancy I'm okay with because it just helps clarify it a little bit more as not as clear as it could be. I mean, it is a legal piece, so there is going to be some legalese in there. So the more we can clarify, the better, which I think comes from our administrative regulations too, and then our training that's set up for all of our staff.
I think the important piece to all this is the communication that this was not just something that was brought because somebody wanted to bring an immigration policy, but it was set down from the state to say this is a requirement. And then we were going to decide how we decided to handle it. And the assumption in the public was that it had nothing to do with it. So I think the communication was extremely lacking. And I think it would have created a lot of confusion and maybe not have required as much law enforcement last month if we had been clear from the district to say that, look, this is a state requirement. We have to do this. This is not something that's an individual bringing to the table. We had conversations, we made some adjustments and changes, and the attorneys were driving this whole thing. So I think just we need to be better from the district level, communicating that to make sure the public's aware of what the truth is, because the propaganda machine is insane, and they're
just mad because Leandra got raked over the coals last month. So they're just being defensive because she's all over Facebook being like, that wasn't what my resolution said. It was something else with her Beetlejuice makeup. So
enforcement. It did not talk about ICE coming onto campuses and taking children. And so that is another false statement. But so, and another thing too is Tony DeMarco read the resolution and he agreed that it could coincide with the board policy. So, I mean, and the sad thing too is that we actually kind of had a Brown Act violation because of the way that the resolution was not presented and how you presented a second resolution with crossed out lines and all that other nonsense that went on. But I do think that was, I mean, like look at what happened in the community and these kids too. It was really funny. I've had some Chapman students, they called for an interview and they said, we looked at the board policy and we looked at the resolution and we can't find out anywhere where ICE is coming on campuses. And we're like, it's an open gate. And I said, that's because there is none. And so they said the same thing. What a propaganda machine this was. How come this wasn't clarified? I had El Dorado students reaching out, Valencia students reaching out, all these students reaching out going, where is this that says that ICE can come on campuses? Where is it that says? And I said, it doesn't. And they go, so we've been played. Yes, you guys have all been played. And so I think that, like, I'm just going to say this. It was irresponsible of us to allow this to rise to the level and not give our community the appropriate information.
I just want to say that if we were to, as a school district, monitor social media and try to respond to every misinformation that's out there, I think that's all we would be doing and not running the school district as it should be. But on the other hand, I believe that the concerns that the community brought are valid. Obviously, if there is a warrant, an illegal warrant that's been served, that obviously the office and the district would enforce it as stated as in the board policy. However, there have been instances where there have not been warrants. And I think that's where the concern from the community is coming from. And when individuals are not named in warrants and this is happening to them, I think this is when, like I said, stirred the concern, and it's a valid concern. I mean, if our community is concerned about it, then it's something we should look at and not dismiss as being misinformation or not a valid concern, because obviously there was strong enough sentiment at the last meeting, whether people feel it was just or justified or not, that it's something we should be looking at. And I appreciate that we changed the however in the board policy to be a little bit more specific and to take that away, because like I said before, the however almost contradicted the rest of it, and I think that's what a lot of the community saw, is like we're saying what we can't do, but then however is almost saying we can do those things. So I think that's where a lot of the misinterpretation came. But again, if that paragraph stirred up that much emotion, I think it's something valid that we should be looking at.
Because it was misinterpreted that it was brought by an individual, not that it was state mandated. That's the entire part of this that's a problem, is that it wasn't communicated that this was a requirement. And then propaganda was run off of, oh, they're going to bring ICE into schools. That's not what's happening. And I would love to know what incidents you're talking about where ICE has gone into schools without warrants and taken children.
I'm saying schools.
You're not saying schools?
I'm saying it's general that there have been incidences where warrants have not been served to people. They've been working their regular jobs and they've been
perfect.
Anyway. So if that's happening, why are parents not afraid of that happening at schools?
Trisha, let's be honest.
If it's happening one place, it can happen
Let's
somewhere
take have one person speak at a time so we're not speaking over each other and let have turns. And Todd, you interrupted. So
because she was saying things that weren't true. I said, let's be honest. You're not talking
so
about
you can make those comments during your time. Let's take one at a time so we can get there.
We're done. I understand that you guys totally disagree and that the propaganda machine is strong. We would like more facts given from the district level about what's happening in instances like this, where we had to have extra law enforcement on site because there was information that was sent to Kim about potential issues because of the propaganda. So I'm just saying there are real
the eyebrow
and the statements that you just made, Trisha, about, well, it does happen when there's not warrants, but it's not schools you're talking about. We have to be consistent with what we're talking about, and that's the problem. It runs away. So I'm ready to vote for this.
Okay, I just want to put in my 2 cents here. Sure. I think my experience last month at the board meeting was clear. People didn't really have a problem with the policy. They had the problem with the resolution. And there was a resolution that was posted I think like 2 weeks before, and it had a lot of things in it. Then what was posted in the agenda was definitely different and tapered down.
I think she means your first and second iteration.
There was a lot of changes, and also, excuse me.
Hey, well, you're accusing me of something.
No, I'm just saying this is what caused the community to get outraged. They read your original, and then the board agenda came out, which was different. And by then, people were already worked up. So I don't really think the district is responsible for that communication fallacy. And then also, you quoted the in your resolution, you put in that district staff shall not obstruct and interfere with, but you didn't put the however. You didn't put in that we are not allowed to solicit or collect. You didn't put in that we're not allowed to seek or require information. You did not put in there that we are not to give education records or personnel records or anything like that. You didn't put any protections. And
because the policy states that this is a resolution and Tony DeMarco approved it. So are you smarter than our attorney?
I'm just saying this is what caused people to get upset.
So you know this, right?
That is what people have expressed to me.
Okay.
And then you keep reiterating that ICE has never been on our campuses, which is a true statement.
Thank you. It is a true statement.
But.
No, there is no
yes,
but.
There is a but.
No, there's not.
There is a but. But ICE has been in our communities. It has affected our families. dramatically, and you can't just dismiss that.
I'm not dismissing it. However, I did call over to Placentia City Council, and we also called over the Placentia Police Department, and they're disputing what you're saying. They're saying that you are not being factual. If you're talking about normal police officers going around the community, and we have illegal immigrants who don't want to speak and take reports because of their immigration status, that happens all over the place. But I called over there and I said, I played them what you said at the board meeting, and they said, "What is she talking about?"
That is not what I heard, and I spoke to several police officers. There's a lot of hearsay, and I think it's
time for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, motion carries 5-0 and an abstention from our student board member. Okay, moving on to board policy 6171.5. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make a motion to adopt revised board policy 6171.5, individual education program, first reading.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Dr. Kim, pass to you for comments.
I'm going to hand this one over to Ms. Gray because it is a first reading and her team did the work on this one.
Okay, thank you very much. So board policy 6171.5, individualized education program, IEP, outlines the district's approach to implementing IEPs under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So since that time, in 2003, when our last policy was created, state and federal laws and guidance have evolved, including requirements related to a free and appropriate public education, least restrictive environment, procedural safeguards, parent rights, and self-governance. So tonight you're going to hear the proposed revisions, updated policy, and the alignment to the current legal requirements and Ed Code. These updates maintain the policy's original intent while reinforcing the district's commitment to equitable access and positive outcomes for our students with disabilities. So our special education director, Ms. Jamie Nash, will provide additional details regarding the proposed updated policy.
Good evening. Okay, good evening, President Buck, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kim LeBlanc-Esparza, and members of Executive Cabinet. Tonight, we are presenting the first reading of the revisions to Board Policy 6171.5, Individuals Education Program. And as Renee mentioned, the current policy was adopted in 2003. And since then, there's been revisions to policy, and most notably the reauthorization of the Individuals with Education Act, of IDEA, in 2004. And with that reauthorization, it really emphasized students that are eligible for special education services that are entitled to a free and appropriate education or FAPE. In the least restrictive environment, with ensuring they have access to general education curriculum, also parental rights. The policy language has also been updated to align with California Ed Code. So for example, you'll see terminology now to reflect individuals with exceptional needs. And also the policy has been reorganized in a framework. So it starts with the board's commitment, then state and SELPA legal requirements, and then clarifies the district, site, and IEP's team's responsibilities. So the proposed revisions, they don't change the direction of the policy, but rather ensure that the current law and best practices in special education and programming are reflected, as well as reinforcing the district's commitment to access, independence, and meaningful outcomes for students. So those are some highlights, and thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just have one little add-in word at the very, very beginning where it starts Board of Education. If you would put in the Board of Education or the PYLUSD Board of Education.
Absolutely.
But I like the updates, and I'm glad we're in compliance and have all the inclusions we need to.
I thought it was good policy, very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0 and a +1 from Simran. Okay, so next we're at our action items for business services, and Dr. Papalardo is going to address both of the items as one, but we're going to start with a motion first. Should we take a motion for both of them, or? Okay, let's take
I'll make a motion to approve 25.1 and 20.
All right, gang. Let's chat. So that's what was happening at the last board meeting. I mean, yeah, the word, however, so what it did was it was like, okay, staff cannot cooperate with immigration enforcement without a warrant and blah, 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 like all these protections. And then it would say, however, district staff shall not obstruct, interfere with, or otherwise impede. And that pivot like kind of read like a loophole, and people obviously did not like that because yikes. So let's peruse what Leandra has been saying on Facebook about this. Let's see. Okay, you guys, we're in Facebook land now. Let's check it out. This is apparently where you can find everything. Let's peruse. Oh boy, this is why I fucking moved out of Orange County. This is, you know what's crazy is that when I moved, even like next door was much nicer. So Esther was in my comment section. Shout out Esther. Wow. She's got encyclopedic knowledge about this shit. She's got every piece of information you could ever possibly want about this. So this is Leandra bitching about the immigration policy that was discussed tonight. She says, as you can see, there's no mention whatsoever as allowing any law enforcement agency on our campus. Let's let the commenters be the judge of that, shall we? Let's sort by all, very important. All I see is documentation from the board meeting, resolution, and agenda. You said there is evidence of teachers and admin emails to encourage students to walk out. Where is that evidence? Why are you pushing the idea administrators and teachers are to blame? What is your agenda? And of course she replied because she can't fucking help herself. You're right. And the resolution... Blah, 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 blah. So she's dodging that question. Students reported it to me. Other teachers reported that teachers were encouraging walkouts. Do I have a recording of this? No. Then you are spreading lies just like the people you are ranting about. You and them are the same type of people. Ooh, deep cut. You are delusional. The community is big, and this online one here on the buzz is small. Just because you find racists that back you up here on the buzz, it's not relevant to the fact that we real parents with children in these schools, the majority of us don't agree with your bullshit. You are one creepy ass woman. That's the kind of stuff I get on my story, on my posts. So, God, it's like I'm home. Looks like home. Okay, well, typical Facebook bullshit. Let's continue. Man, she's a piece of work. Check this shit out. Look at her profile picture. Oh, this is about me. Is this play about us? It is. Ready to look? Okay. I'm flattered. I've come to realize how effective I am. I have a group of people who have made it their mission to defame me and attempt to derail me in my personal and political life. Every day, there is an attempt at something new with the same tired material. They're now attempting to take it to a national level. All I can say is thank you. Their crazy has been witnessed at the local level, and my support has grown exponentially. I can't wait to see what happens at the national level. Keep exposing yourselves. It's a beautiful thing. Well, baby, let's see what we got. I guess she looks up my name on Google in her free time. This is about Esther. I thought people would find this interesting. This actually comes up on Google now. I told you she goes by Leandra. Well, she comes up as Leandra. Hilarious. My God, wouldn't it be so funny if I literally bleeped her name every time I said it? Oh, hilarious. We're sending scripture to people who support pedophiles. Okay, well, that's a weird thing to do. Let's wrap this shit up, you know? So the last time I stopped to yap at you, we were talking about how influential school boards are, how much power there is in voting in your school board elections and getting involved. For all of the craziness that Leandra has brought to this school board, these people in this district are fighting so hard. The majority of the board is fighting so freaking hard. And it's just so beautiful to see democracy in action, baby. They're trying to take it away from us, but we're not going to let them. It makes me feel patriotic. People paid attention. They organized. They voted. And they flipped the freaking board back. They took it back from those extremists because they took notice and they worked together. And I think that is it's a beautiful thing. And you can see it when freaking 50 plus people showed up to speak last month. They mobilized. It's really cool. And extremists already understand this, by the way. That is why they have spent years targeting school boards and how groups like Moms for Liberty even became their little parasitic selves going in and flipping the boards. And yes, they have lots of funding and they have a lot of eyes on them and they have a lot of support from the far right machine, but they know that if they control the smallest arena, they can kind of snowball their power. They can pick up school boards, they can pick up local elections, and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, they want to have a chapter in every state or every county. It's something ridiculous. I'm not looking it up. So after doing a deep dive into the school district, my takeaway is not like, oh, Leandra Blades is freaking insane. It's like, look at these people who flipped the board back. And like I said, I remember when that happened because I was still in OC, and it was so exciting. And my other takeaway is pay attention to your own district. I have a Substack talking about this, how you can literally try to make it like a thing. It's once a month. You can go out with your friends, hit up the school board. Hilariously, somebody sent me a message saying that in the back row of this school board meeting, there is a group that calls themselves the Cabal, and they have cookies. And I was like, they said, be not afraid. And I was like, I should have driven down. I should have gone to the school board meeting. But I think getting your friends involved, making it kind of fun. People do book clubs. Why the hell not do a school board club? Why not just put this on the TV and like make dinner or have snacks or whatever? And if you want to, we can hang out. We can do it. So like just become annoying and informed, you guys, because that really makes you impossible to ignore. The people who are trying to drag education backwards are counting on you not paying attention and being too overwhelmed or too distracted or finding it too boring to pay attention and stand up for it and show up. But unfortunately for them, we are paying attention now. And if you like this sort of thing, please follow along. I cover education news and policy updates, and we occasionally laugh a little and have some fun as well. Like, subscribe, hit that bell, turn those notifications on, tell your friends, and then do the part that actually scares these extremists, which is pay attention to them, show up, and laugh at them, because we refuse to sit back while they take public education. I am not letting 90% of fucking adults that my children are going to be in the world with be educated by fascists, period. So see you next time, buddies. I love